Welcome back to another edition of Wide Bay's ITV's Creative Space. Today's special guests, I have got Jill Ireland and Donna Dwyer from the Bundaberg Pottery Association. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, your official titles are, Jill, you're the publicity officer.
Yes.
And you are the gallery director.
That's it.
So how long have you been in these roles? So I'll go, Donna, how long have you been in your role?
I've only just been in this year, just taken over.
Yeah. And what made you sort of want to do that?
Well, we had this absolutely amazing space of creative art that had been sitting there for 7 years, and nobody in Bundaberg really knew about it. And the lady that I replaced had done an amazing job, so I basically just picked up the baton from her, and I'm running with that now. And with the help of Jill, we're hopefully getting it as a place to go for your pottery in Bundaberg.
Yeah, you're doing a marvellous job. Jill, what inspired you to sort of step in towards that role?
The lady that was doing it isn't very well anymore, so I took over just to help out with this renewal exhibition that we've just started, and also to help Donna in the gallery just renew the gallery with new paint, new furniture. We've moved things around, haven't we?
We have.
And just created a better space for our stuff to be available to the public. So, yeah.
So when we talk about the journey that the Bundaberg Pottery has gone through, a lot of people, we were talking about this before the show, a lot of people aren't really aware that it's there. So how long has the Pottery Association been going?
Pottery Group in Bundaberg's been going for 52 years now. We originally were in an old wooden building in the old showgrounds, but the termites came visiting and the building basically just fell down around us. And then the council offered us the chance to move over into the area we are there now. So the club built the building on the council's land, and then the Woodies arrived, and then the Art Society arrived. So the three of us now make up this lovely little art precinct there. And the old school building originally came from Bundaberg State High, and it was a Scouts building, but got a bit too small for them, so they vacated. So then it was given to us to utilise, and the room we were given, we've turned into our gallery.
That's absolutely amazing. And I've been in Bundaberg for 11 years, and I don't, up until recently, didn't know the whole story. And I think there's a lot of people that probably do go past and think it's still part of the old showgrounds. So, I have to say, Jill, we're just talking about the renewal exhibition that you had on Saturday night. I was lucky enough that I got the chance to see some of the amazing works, and we've only got a small sample of what is available in pottery, but was the exhibition what you'd hoped for on Saturday night?
Oh, I think we got more than what we were expecting. There was a good turnout from the public. A lot of people were very happy with what they could see. This is the first time that Donna and I have actually had anything to do with an exhibition, and the feedback from our club members has been very positive. So, yeah, we're very happy with what we've achieved, haven't we?
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I have to say, myself, not being to a pottery exhibition for quite some time, I actually looked at it with different eyes again, and was amazed at the different levels, and you start to see things that you think, oh, I forgot that you could do that, or forgot that was technique. So
That's right.
we're just going to talk about a few sort of, I guess, the journey into pottery. So from a personal point of view, what got you both inspired into pottery?
For myself, it was the looking at a lump of clay, which is basically mud, and then looking at a finished fired piece. I just thought that was amazing, that you could create something and it be useful. There is nothing better than having a coffee in the morning out of a coffee mug you have made, or a friend say to you, I've got a coffee mug at home. I use it every day, and I've had it for about 10 years now, you know, because they do last, because they're high-fired. So that's the buzz I get, you know, that it's practical, domestic wear, but you can also be creative with so many other avenues with it.
And what was your journey into the pottery?
Well, I started out with painting and decided I wanted to bring that more into my artwork as well, and move into clay to see what I could form with my hands, really, and bring out the techniques that I'd learned in art into my pottery, playing with colour, playing with shapes, being able to cut into clay and hopefully hoping that it would hold together and not fall apart. But yeah, those are the things that really got me, and was just pushing the clay to its limits and hoping it would hold up, and firing and glazing. Yeah.
So it's interesting when we talk about the firing and glazing. So one of the things that I did learn, and I guess we forget that things do happen. So one of the things that I did learn, that when you are actually firing in the kiln, that you must remember to put things like little air holes in
Yes.
them. Otherwise you have
Explosions.
So we've got a couple of pieces down here. I'm just going to reach for this one. So this is a pear mould.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing pottery, do people actually, I guess so, this is a mould that's actually made out of pottery, and then you're shaping the clay into that?
That's actually, it's made out of plaster of Paris, because that way the clay will release, and that's what they call a slip mould. So you're using slip, which is basically runny clay, and it's tipped in, as you see, the hole at the top. You've tipped it in there, and then you fill it up, and then you have to let it sit. And because the clay will spread out, you just keep topping it up, and then after you see just around on the edges there's a little bit of a crust forms, then you tip out the excess slip and then set it aside and dry. And because it's made of plaster of Paris, when it's completely dry, it will just come away from the clay.
So it's interesting, because I guess a lot of people don't realise that there are those two techniques. I think we think of pottery as just being a slab of clay, you mould it, you shape it, or it's on a wheel. And I have learnt that there are definitely differences to having something on the wheel, and I think pottery was probably made famous again through that infamous scene on Ghost.
Yes.
But I do know that, having done things on the wheel, that there is a certain point where if you're not careful it just falls over. And so we've also got a mould here. So can you just talk us through what this would be?
That mould can be used in two different ways. If it's up like so, it's called a slump mould, and the clay actually slumps into it, and then you work it around. And also too, you can make you can get little balls of clay and put them around so that they all join. So when it comes out, see this piece up here,
Yes,
the indigenous piece, that was made in a slump mould like that, with all those pieces carefully shaped so that they all fitted in together. And then that same mould, if it's turned upside down, you get a slab of clay, and it's a hump mould, so you just lay the clay over it and work it down, and it then you can decorate it. And then, because again it's plaster of Paris, or if a piece has been bisqued, it will then release from wet clay.
So when we get to the glazing stages, how important is it to get your glazing and your painting right?
Very.
So I'm just looking at this beautiful vase with the eucalyptus leaves on there, and I can remember doing. So what is the difference when a lot of people will see the term pottery and then they will see ceramics? So What is the difference between the two to those who don't know?
The difference being that ceramics, they're both from the same family, put it that way, but ceramics are slip cast and they fire at a low temperature. They would probably only fire to 1,100 degrees, whereas some of these pieces here have gone through to 1,220 degrees or 1,260 degrees. So the difference is in the firing and the glazes that they use. Pottery is tending to be higher fired.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you talk about the higher firing, because I know throughout the years and century in archaeological digs that we've discovered that there are some amazing pieces that were done back in times when I'm sure, I think probably just after dinosaurs worked the earth. And how would they have achieved that back then? Because that's a very high temperature.
That is, yes. That would have been done in old wooden kilns, and the kilns have to be shaped in a way that they will promote heat production. All your old Japanese and Chinese kilns were what they call anagama kilns, and they were like a big long tunnel that they would walk in and pack all the pottery around, and then that would be loaded with wood in the middle and then fed through holes in the top of the big long tunnel. And they would have been massive. People would have been able to walk in carrying pieces to put on the shelves either side of the big fire down the middle. And there's a famous story. A red glaze is very, very bright red, is very, very hard to make. And the story goes that there was an emperor's potter and he fired the kilns, and one time by accident an animal had fallen in to the kiln and ended up with a reduction firing because it was organic matter, this poor animal. And the emperor absolutely loved it and said, I want more. But the potter had no idea what had happened. So he tried to replicate it and just could never do it. And the emperor was getting a little bit frustrated with this. So at the last ditch attempt, the poor potter got so frustrated he threw himself into the kiln. He was organic matter, so therefore they ended up with this beautiful red. That's how it goes. I don't know if that's fact, but it was beautiful.
I think that will give us just a whole new meaning and the ways of looking at red pot. So I have never heard that story. So I think now when I look at red, I'm going to be looking at it in a completely different way. It is look. It is truly amazing. I guess the myths and the folklores that come with pottery, but the techniques over the years now, Jill. There is a beautiful piece up there that I absolutely fell in love with, which is one of yours, which I have proudly now become the owner of. Where did you get your inspiration from that? So Jill's piece is this beautiful heart-shaped piece just over there. That's that gorgeous teal. Where did you get your inspiration for that?
So my inspiration for that comes from putting love back out into the world. And this is actually about the community within your family. So the larger holes are your great-great-grandparents. The next size down would be your grandparents, and the next size down are your parents, and then the smallest ones are your siblings. So as things happen in your life, you've got this great community of love around you, allowing you to make mistakes and to be there to help you to find the right path through, guiding you, so that you can do everything that you do with love and coming from a place of kindness in everything that you do.
That's true. Yeah, I love that story. I think that's what drew me to it. Now, some of the other pieces are very unusual. This middle piece here. How long would that have taken to, I guess, from start to scratch? And it's how, I guess, with those pieces, because we did talk earlier about putting air holes in them,
Yes.
what would be some of the risks associated with firing them?
I'm not sure how long that took, Carmen. Would that have been a month's work there, or?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And the planning as well,
Yes,
to know
yeah.
where you're going to put what pieces.
Yes.
Um,
Colours, making sure that the glaze matched the clay, otherwise it shrinks and you get cracks in it. That's one of our lovely potters who has a very creative streak, doesn't she?
She does, yes,
Yeah,
And all the
yeah.
holes have to be put in first.
Yep.
So you have to make sure that they all line up.
Yep.
There's a lot of work and a lot of planning going into it.
Yeah.
And it just depends on the individual potter whether they are lucky enough to be able to donate a lot of time to their craft, or whether it's just weekends, or and that sort of has a lot of effect on how much time a piece takes.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. And the thing I love about the pottery, and the thing I really liked about having a look at the exhibition on Saturday, was you saw pieces that were from beginners to really technically advanced, and
That's right.
you could look at them and say, well, they're all, when I say they're all equal in the terms of there's just, you can tell there's such joy in creating. Now, I know when we look at a piece like this, so we're looking at a piece like this, the painting in this, how do you achieve all this painting without the bleeds and getting the colours just right?
That's underglaze, and first the piece is made and air dried and then painted, so there's a risk that it may crack during the bisque firing. You can paint on bisqued ware, but those particular pieces are painted on green ware before it's been bisqued, and underglazes are basically special paints for pottery, and then there's a clear glaze over the top of it. So there's a lot of hours of work gone into that piece.
And I think that's the thing, people don't, I don't think it's that they don't appreciate it, but I think they probably have not understood that you look at a piece like this and you think, oh, well, it doesn't take that long.
That's
But
right.
there is actually a little bit of work
Well, that is
involved in
hand
it.
painted,
Yes.
so
And,
there's a lot of work there.
You have lovely pieces. Now, we were talking about accidents in the kiln sometimes, and how everything has a use no matter what it is. So I do know a friend of mine that she says when she has accidents in the kiln, her pieces tend to become something else, or they're broken down and reused in some amazing manner. Or, as we were talking about, a lot of pieces end up in the garden. So I'm just going to reach over, and this piece here, we'll have a closer look at it in a minute, but for all intents and purposes, that looks just like a lovely garden piece, but it's just that tiny little crack. So the tiny little crack that's there,
Yes.
what would have caused that?
Probably me pushing the clay too far with my shapes, and it's very thin as a finish, which is what I like to achieve, is a thinness in my clay. And then if I cut in too far each time the clay moves in the kiln as it's being fired with the glaze, sometimes they just crack like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, yes, I've just reutilised it with old man's beard. Yeah.
Well,
hangs in the tree. Yeah.
It looks absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Now,
Thank you.
I am going to talk a little bit about, there's a, we'll get a closer look up there, but there's a piece just up there that has two different finishes to it. So the round piece that's up the top there, can you just explain this first side? What is that? How was that achieved?
This side here, that's what they call feather firing, and that's done in a raku kiln. You put the pieces being bisqued, it goes into a raku kiln, and it's taken to the temperature of 750 degrees, and that usually would only take an hour. Then it's taken out at that temperature, and then you have to pick your moment, because if it's too hot, the feather just goes black lump, or it doesn't take at all. So you lay the feather on it, and as it burns, the carbon goes into the pot. And hence you can do, that's feathers, and those little dots are actually just sugar. And then you can do horsehair as well, where you get a strand of a horse's tail and lay that over it, and it kind of curls up as it burns and gives some really interesting patterns, which you cannot control. It just does its thing. And then the other side has been done in underglaze, and it's the story, it was a piece for the exhibition, and it's the story of rising from the ashes like a phoenix, to face challenges in your life.
That it's quite interesting how that's done, and for a lot of us, we would not think about things like horsehair or feathers or even sugar being used. I think we all think about pottery as just pottery and painting it and glazing it, and now there are all these amazing techniques and experiments that are being used. So we're going to just take a little bit of a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll get some close-ups and talk a bit more about the paintings. But I've got to say, I think it's given me a renewed interest in pottery, and I can't wait to see where the journey goes.
Yeah, lovely.
So we'll be back in a short moment. Until then, keep creating. Welcome back to Creative Space, and my special guests today are Donna and Jill from Bundaberg Pottery Association. Welcome back, ladies. This piece up here by Anisha Lee called Eucalyptus, that's actually a really beautiful piece. And I was reading the story behind this piece and about her journey and looking at her Indigenous roots and the summers and the renewal, the eucalyptus leaves, and I guess she's looking at the stories that the native plants tell. The technique in that, so to get a work of art like that, the leaves and the Indigenous references in there, how do you add those in?
That would have been, it's made in a slump mould, which is the example of the small one there, and each individual piece she's had to form, like the leaves, she's had to lay them in and then make sure that everything else around it actually fits in, which sounds quite simple, but it's not so simple. It takes a little bit of a knack to be able to do that. And then she's gone ahead and done underglaze painting with her Indigenous symbols, and it's come up absolutely beautiful, and the story behind it is lovely.
It is a beautiful work of art, and we'll have a closer look at that. But there's even some little simple pieces here now. The little platypus, I love the little platypus there. So to create something like that, how long would that take you? And what sort
Did
of
you leave
clay?
that one?
That's just pushed into a mould. So to put it together probably only takes maybe 10 minutes. And then it's a drying time to make it fall out of the plaster of Paris mould. It goes through a bisque firing, and then it's got the glaze on the top. So yeah, probably 15 minutes all up to have it all finished. Yeah.
So what do you find, what's the difference when you're doing the slip moulds as opposed to, say, the raw form clay mould? When you're firing them, do you still run the same risks with the air holes and exploding?
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
Yes. The dampness is more of an enemy than an air hole. You can throw a piece and it and as you're feeling it, you may feel a little bit of an air hole. You can be lucky enough to get away with that, but if there is any moisture in that hole, as the piece fires, of course the steam is leaving the piece. If it's trapped, then it just goes bang. And if it does a big enough bang, it will take out other pieces that are stacked in the kiln around it, which is a bit scary. So drying is super important.
Yes.
How long do you dry a piece before you pop it in the kiln?
Well, basically weather
Yeah.
permits.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got a lot of humidity and a lot of wet weather, it'll take a lot longer. Winter takes longer. And the slower you dry a piece, the better it is. It helps prevent stress cracking, that sort of thing. So the longer you can leave it to dry, the better. But up to 2 weeks
Up to 2 weeks.
it can take.
So it's, I guess it then becomes something that if you're a bit impatient, like I can be, and broken pieces, you need to practice that restraint of
You
making
will learn
sure
patience,
it's dry.
yes.
It's a little piece there that's just got the black glaze on the inside. How do you achieve that sort of marbled look?
That was thrown by one of our better potters, and that's two clays, and they're wedged together, so you get a slab of white, slab of black, and they make black clay now, which is beautiful, and then a white, black, and then you wedge that together, and then as you're throwing it on the wheel, it comes out with that
Just
marbled
like
effect.
that. Okay, so
And you can colour clay blue, green, yellow. You can do that with multiple colours. But they've chosen to do the black and white, which is really effective.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things is that for a long, long time, I can remember pottery was, I'm sure everyone at some stage had the pottery cups and the pottery, cookie jars, and they were all the rage, but they were always conventional colours. And looking at the colours now that we get in pottery, I think that's probably helped the resurgence of it. But do you think, is there anything that you can pinpoint as to why people are now getting more interested in pottery?
I think lockdown had a lot to do with it. Yes, COVID. It's amazing how many people, because over COVID, it was very hard to get clay because people were just buying clay because they were stuck at home. And that has made a big, big difference.
Yes. Even to our membership, hasn't it?
Yes.
Since,
So do you think after the advent of COVID, I've spoken to quite a few artists about the changes pre-COVID, COVID and after COVID. Has that changed the membership? Has it changed the involvement at all?
It's increased our membership because, like I said, over COVID, a lot of people needed something to do, and now they've just continued their journey and have joined the club, and because we've got all the facilities there to use, it's a great spot. Once you're a member, you can have all your work fired there. So I think, yes, that's the main reason.
So for somebody who's sitting out there watching this and has got no experience at all but thinks I'd love to give pottery a go, how can they come along, and what sort of classes do you have, and what's involved?
we have a couple of teachers. That one teaches hand building and another teaches wheel throwing. So you can come along to those classes, or you can just join up as a member, and there is always people within the club room that will help you. There's wheels there to use, there's the slump moulds, there's the slip pouring, there's the moulds you can push into, and people will help you with whatever you're trying to do within the club hours. So yeah, there's all sorts of things available down in the clubhouse, isn't there?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
All the glazes. We have a
Yeah.
fully equipped glaze room that's set up that can be utilised, and also too they'll get advice on what type of clay to use for what type of piece.
Yes.
And that's very important.
Well, I have to honestly say that after going along and doing a couple of little hand building courses and actually having one of mine successfully fire without
Well done.
without breaking, I was truly amazed at the beginners that were in the class with me and how they were enjoying it so much. And I think it was that tactile working with your hands and actually seeing something that you've created. I think it's just amazing, and it's so good that we have these facilities here. So now, for people that want to find your details, they can go to a Facebook site. And do you have a website?
We
at
do
all?
have a Facebook page for the Bundaberg Pottery Group that is out there. A lady called Janet, she runs that side of things, and she's always posting different things up. Or apart from that, just call into the clubhouse, and you're more than welcome. Just pop through the door and say hi. You know, and somebody will always come over, because we know the regular faces, and if we see a new face, we just come over and make them welcome and take them for a little walk around.
It is a fantastic facility, and for those viewers who have not been there, I strongly recommend you do go and pay them a visit. And it's also, I think it's something, I was speaking to someone the other day about a great tourism opportunity, because we have a lot of tourists in here that are art orientated and love to see something different. And a lady was asking me the other day, she was interested in the art, and I suggested, you know, among that was this the exhibition that was on Saturday night, and she was quite, you know, she loved that idea. Getting children involved, do you think what's easier, teaching children or teaching adults?
Coming from a teaching background, I'd stick with adults. Also too, with the clay and that, there is workplace health and safety, because it's not scary, but there are chemicals in the clay. In the glazes there are chemicals, so you have to keep a very, very close eye on children. In the classes, I think they have to be 16 or above to actually attend the classes. And a lot of schools do it in their art courses as well, which is great, and it's a good place for the children to start from. To kick off their creative career. And also too, in the schools they can use things that aren't actually the clays we use. They can use polymer clays, they can use air dry clays, which is a lot safer for them. But basically you can do the same with those clays as we do with these clays.
I have used the air dry clay when I've been teaching my own grandchildren. That, you know, it's quite different, and I've even had a play with that myself when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I don't have clay. That's the next best thing. A polymer clay, yes, it's actually quite an interesting medium. Very different in the sense that you have to work very quickly to get away from the heat. But look, I love the exhibition. I love the pieces. And what's next? Is there another exhibition in the pipeline?
That's something we'll talk about at a club level at our next meeting. But yes, we'd certainly embrace another exhibition next year, wouldn't we?
There will be, yes.
So do many of the members, do they participate in art entries and competitions?
Yes. We have. There's quite a few that have their work in Bragg, which is lovely, and then, I'm actually a member of the Wide Bay Burnett Potters, and we do exhibitions all around the Wide Bay region, and there's 20 of our members that are also members of Wide Bay, so they put their work in those exhibitions as well. So, and a lot of clubs do exchange exhibitions as well. Not such an exhibition, but an exchange. They'll send up a few pieces, and then we'll send away a few pieces, and then we just put them on display just to get the creative juices going and to know what's happening in other areas as well. So like a lot of the country clubs have closed because they just struggled for members, so it's good to send your work out there and get them a little bit more enthusiastic about keeping the doors open of their clubhouses and that sort of thing. So,
Well, I've got this absolutely gorgeous piece here that Donna has made, and I've got to say I'm actually really intrigued by it. How did you make it?
it's thrown on the wheel in one piece. So basically you raise the centre piece up and then you raise the outside walls up, and they all meet at the top, obviously, and then at the leather hard stage you then carve the holes on the outside piece.
And for viewers that can't quite see the details in this, I've got to say, if this was me, this would have been a crumpled heap. It's truly amazing. It's a beautiful piece of work, and it just shows you how diverse and how interesting the techniques are. When we look at this and we look at pottery, I'm astounded at how many beautiful pieces that people have created, and I strongly recommend everyone, if you're thinking about a beautiful gift, go along to the Pottery Gallery, have a look, and as someone once said, do yourself a favour. Thank you, ladies. It's been absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to see the next instalment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So until next time, wherever you are in the Wide Bay area, keep creating, and we'll see you next time on The Creative Space.